Let me introduce Peter Huber, Paul McWilliams, Todd Cohen, Andy Kessler, Professor Lawrence Lessig, and George Gilder. And I think without any further ado, I'd like to start with Professor Lessig. What do you mean by net neutrality? What's wrong with the way things are today? Why do we need to change the law?
Well, net neutrality is exactly what George Gilder had been talking about in the early stages of understanding the Internet. It is the principle that the network embraces, which some people call the end-to-end principle, some people call the dumb, stupid network principle, but it's a principle that the network is as simple as possible and all the intelligence is at the edge of the network. Now, when the Internet was born, there was a legal basis to insist upon that neutrality. There was a technical basis that made that neutrality necessary. You couldn't technically actually do anything different. And there was a very strong norm in the market supporting that neutrality. And because of that neutrality, the explosion of innovation at the applications and content layer happened. Now, right now, the legal basis supporting that neutrality has been erased by the FCC. August 5th, 2005, the FCC abandoned any continuing obligation of neutrality for the network. The technical basis for that neutrality is gone because all the technology companies have now built intelligence back into the network so that the network itself can begin to pick and choose applications and content that will succeed on the network. And the norms supporting neutrality on this network are also eroding. So the original network that exploded innovation in applications and content is now being changed back to exactly the ancient regime which George Gilder taught us how many years ago was the failure in the potential for network policy. So all that net neutrality is, in my view, is a very thin layer of regulation, returning much less regulation than we had all the way through the history of the Internet until August 5th, 2005. It simply requires that there is not what I call, well, that there's not discrimination in actually how you make your content available to different equivalent kinds of products. So I don't have any problem if Verizon wants to say to me, if I want 100 megabits per second, I can dream for a second, but if I want 100 megabits per second symmetrical, I've got to pay $100 a month. And if you want just 1 megabit, you can pay just $25 a month. I don't care about consumer tiering, but I do care about tiering at the level of particular companies. So if you say to YouTube, if you want high quality video, you've got to pay this price, and Google, you've got to pay this price for high quality video, and the prices are different between them, that creates the opportunity for the existing powerful network operators and existing companies to protect themselves against the competition that has made the Internet exactly the source of competition it is.
Paul, do you have a response?
Just real quickly, Commissioner Martin, the FCC, said the following in a Q&A period, Q&A during a conference. I do think the Commission has the authority necessary to enforce network neutrality violations, noting that the FCC has in fact done that in the case of Madison River's blocking of Vonage VoIP. The Commissioner of the FTC said something very, very similar at the Aspen meeting last August, in quite a bit longer statement.
Yeah, the premise under which Madison River was prosecuted was removed on August 5th, 2005. So the Commissioner believes that there's residual jurisdiction, but at the same time constantly talks about the unwillingness to actually exercise the jurisdiction, or the need to exercise the jurisdiction. And what's the consequence? I mean, I wish Bob Woodward would move on to an interesting subject. I mean, here's where there's a state of denial, right? We have absolutely the worst broadband policy imaginable, and it's just not theory, not a bunch of academics waving their hands in the air like this. It's facts. We have digressed in our broadband position across, relative to the rest of the world in the last 6, I think 8 years, and I think primarily because of this policy.
I agree with you. I think we need